practice and governance. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. As Jamie's indicated, my name is Tina Konkar and I work in the Research and Enterprise Professional Services and head up the Research Information and Governance team, or RIG as we are known for short. All the RIG team will be presenting today, so first let's have some introductions. Let me introduce you to the other members of the RIG team. Kelly Butterworth, Research Impact Officer. Give us a wave, Kelly. Thank you. Lisa Flaxman, RIG Quality Assurance Officer. Stuart Morris, Ref and Research Policy Manager. And now let's move on to today's presentation and what we will cover. You may have heard lots of terminology around responsible research. Our aim today is to demystify some of this and to showcase that responsible research is about, in the main, taking positive and common sense action to do things the right way, using accepted guidelines and tools designed to support you. So let's start with the burning question. What is responsible research and whose responsibility is it? Well, responsible research is the practice of scientific investigation with integrity, and it's our collective responsibility. As a university, we have a responsibility to undertake our research management ethically and with integrity. Our sector has agreed a collective and unified set of standards and concordats to help guide our research behaviours. For example, promoting best practice for research outputs and evaluation through the San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment, or DORA as it's known, or the Concordat for Research Integrity, or others such as the Concordat for Research Using Animals, and many more. LBU are signatories of the Research Integrity Concordat and the Researcher Development Framework, and our university is in the process of signing up to many more of these agreements. As an institution, we also need to have a set of research policies and procedures, or research governance, as you might like to call it, that ensure that we undertake research ethically and with integrity, and processes in place to manage any research misconduct. Researchers and research students have a collective responsibility to understand and be familiar with the university's research governance and to understand the guidelines and concordats that offer good practice in research. Peer review amongst researchers helps to ensure that we maintain good quality outputs and provides an additional layer of checking on research integrity. Our research partners and stakeholders also have a collective responsibility, and that is to provide openness and transparency and to receive that in return from us. So why responsible research? The research we do brings about change, and we need to do our best to mitigate unintended consequences through holistic research good practice. In our university, where applied research is particularly prevalent, this is important. Facets of responsible research that have emerged over the last 10 years include responsible research assessment and responsible research innovation. Let's learn a bit more about them. Responsible research assessment is practiced globally, but for the purposes of this presentation and our geography, I'm using the UK Research and Innovation, UKRI, Responsible Research Assessment, which agreed and established 5 global values. And by values, we mean principles or standards of behaviour. They are 1, assessment shapes culture. So research assessment and what the community values influences how research is performed. 2, diversity creates excellence. The definition of research excellence needs to be broad and encompass perspectives and experiences from people of all backgrounds. 3, fostering a healthy system. Funders should employ clear criteria, relevant indicators, and regular self-evaluation. 4, research is global. Funders' assessment approaches must be mindful of local context, culture, language, and unintended consequences which can impact other countries. 5, stakeholders are vital in enacting change. All stakeholders should collaborate to develop and evaluate responsible research assessment and resist shifting blame to other parties. Now let's learn a little bit about responsible research innovation. Responsible research and innovation was shaped during the European Research Framework Programmes, which predated the Horizon programme. It evolved and incorporates 6 aspects or facets to cover responsible research and innovation, which are ethics, also known as integrity, science education, gender equality, open access, governance, and public engagement. I'll now hand over to Stuart to tell you a bit more on ethics and integrity. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Our university is a signatory of the UK Concordat to support research integrity. The Concordat asks universities, research institutes and individual researchers to commit to ensuring their work is underpinned by the highest standards of rigour and integrity. All signatories to the Concordat are committed to the ongoing development of a culture that supports and nurtures research integrity. We also have to have in place mechanisms that provide assurances and when things go wrong, to ensure appropriate investigation and action take place. Most importantly, we must be able to account for our efforts in an open and transparent way. To help manage our responsibilities, other institutions that ours the same have research offices, officers and institutional research policies. These all provide excellent sources of guidance for responsible conduct in research, since they're all products of our institution's efforts to clarify its own responsibilities. Some of the policies and procedures we have include the Code of Good Practice for Research, Research Ethics Policy, a Statement on Trusted Research, Research Ethics Procedures, Policy and Procedures for Investigating Allegations of Misconduct in Research, and there's many, many more which can be found in our Research Information and Governance web pages, which we'll share some information about at the end of this presentation. The diagram on this slide is an example of a useful tool that shows, using a red, amber, green rating, those aspects within research ethics and research integrity that are within our potential control to manage and mitigate. The diagram helps a researcher navigate what, in relation to research integrity, is fully within their control to shape, that's the ones in green, what they can control to some extent, that's the ones in amber, and what is mostly outside of their control, that's the ones in red. If this diagram is a little bit small, we'll be able to provide some notes after this meeting and you can have a look in a bit more detail at it and look at the very detail that's included in the diagram. What this diagram clearly shows, though, is why personal responsibility matters in the context of responsible research, and that although universities have many processes and protocols that require following to ensure research is governed properly, researching in a responsible manner is something that each researcher must always consider themselves and make decisions about personally when conducting research. Accepted practices for the responsible conduct of research can and do vary from discipline to discipline. There's also many interpretations of responsible research within the UK and across the globe. As this slide shows here, the US Office of Research Integrity goes a bit further with some of its interpretations and describes a set and sets out a useful list of shared values that binds all researchers together. These are honesty, accuracy, efficiency, and objectivity. So they've just gone a little bit further to describe some of the aspects. Our university is currently developing a research integrity framework or a policy, and we're still working that out, under the wider responsible research banner. This slide illustrates how we might structure the integrity policy or framework, splitting into the 5 areas shown on the slide. This again is based on a model offered by the US Office of Research Integrity. It's not set in stone, and there'll be lots of other aspects underneath of each of those titles, but it's something we're currently thinking about and developing. As outlined in an earlier slide, our university does have a number of policies and procedures, so it's not that we don't have anything. We have lots of policies and procedures which fall under the integrity banner. We just don't have something that brings it all together. And all these policies and procedures do ensure that we're compliant with the Concordat to support research integrity. And in fact, we have actually done an assessment against that and are happy that we are compliant. However, as mentioned, we're still at the early stages of forming an overarching statement that ties all this together. Having done some benchmarking across the country, many universities already have in place research integrity policies or statements. Others are similar to us and don't have anything in place. And one of the reasons we're actually wanting to do this is that Concordat to support research integrity within its language does assume that most institutions have something similar in place to a research integrity policy. Therefore, we felt it was timely to produce one, as it makes it easier to demonstrate compliance. Does help when you're doing the actual assessment that you don't have to try and map everything against it. And if you have an overarching integrity policy, we should be able to do that a lot more simply. I'll now hand you over to Lisa and then to Kelly to speak to you about the other 5 facets of responsible research and innovation that Tina mentioned in an earlier slide.
Thank you, Stuart. Stuart has covered the research ethics facet. I am now going to talk about 4 other facets that were shaped in the responsible research and innovation model and their importance. In this table, I have also provided examples both from our university and elsewhere that demonstrate this good practice, which you can review at your leisure when these slides are shared. Facet number 2 is science education. This is encouraging communities and the next generation to engage with research, including STEM research, and this may be involvement with schools or local communities. Examples of this work at our university includes the work of the Obesity Institute and the Centre for Health Promotion. Facet 3 is gender equality, which can be widened to equality, diversity and inclusion. This is getting marginalised groups of researchers an equal footing in research, and originally focused on women in research. An example of IDI work done in the university is that with the support of Research England's Enhancing Research Culture funding, we have launched an equity and inclusion fund supporting researchers and the careers of historically excluded groups at the university. Also, we need to ensure that research is diverse and inclusive. We will need to demonstrate this in the ref submission too. Facet 4 is open access. Open access helps to promote the visibility of your research. There are responsible research reasons to support open access. Openness around all aspects of the research process is an ethical stance which enables transparency on the process and increases the chance of reproducibility of research results. Facet 5 is governance. This is governance in the sense of how you manage your research project and how it is governed. For example, the work of the Obesity Institute has involved setting up project oversight boards, stakeholder engagement groups, for example, the Obesity Voices Hub, and also collaborating with partners and policy makers. I will now hand over to Kelly to present Facet 6, which is public engagement. Thank you.
Kelly, I just want to make sure that you're not on mute. sorry, apologies.
No worries.
I'll start again. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jamie. Public engagement. Public engagement is about enhancing and widening participation at all research and innovation stages to align research and innovation with problems stemming from society. It is also about guaranteeing a transdisciplinary approach that leads to new and profitable partnerships, more grounded in concerns and aspirations of society. Public engagement in responsible research and innovation is about co-creating the future with citizens and civil society organisations, and also bringing on board the widest possible diversity of actors that would not normally interact with each other on matters of science and technology. So, public engagement, what does that actually mean? It's actually really important, is engaging with the public. It's pivotal that to conduct research in any shape or form, then we must have that magical word, trust. This means that public engagement is, above all else, a two-way street. It is a way of listening to what the public have to say, as well as trying to inform the public of where opinion may be going. It is not brainwashing or publicity, nor is it at the other extreme just simplistically agreeing with everything that the public would say. If you're researching responsibly, these are the things you need to look at and think about when engaging with the public. You need to ensure that ethical approval is sought and ensuring that it's at the appropriate level. Ensure that any GDPR as appropriate is in place, i.e. ensuring that you have signed statements if you want to go back to participants for further information. Public engagement is about collaborating, encouraging public participation in your research by involving people as researchers for your project, or to develop collaborative research projects, which helps to define the future research direction, policy, or implementation or application of research outcomes. At the top there, action catalogue, this is something that you'll be able to look into more detail when the slides are sent around, which is a toolkit which shows approaches that you may want to take. Now I'll take you through some of the professional associations that Leeds Beckett is a member of, which are available as a support mechanism. So UKRIO, the UK Research Integrity Office, to create and share knowledge of best practice and positive research culture and conduct. UKRIO operates a comprehensive events programme. UKRIO is a charity and a trusted source for up-to-date education, development and dissemination around research integrity best practice, proving access to a mix of events covering informative topics, updates for the research community and opportunities for peer learning. There is an annual Research Integrity Conference, which is free and open to all. And there are other events on offer, which include regular webinars, roundtables, and events for organisations. ARMA. ARMA is the Association of Research Managers and Administrators. Some of the events that they have on offer are special interest groups, known as SIGs. There's a variety of these. An example of some are ethics and governance, audit and compliance, open research, and they offer drop-in sessions also. Members of administrative staff across the university are signed up to ARMA and do attend a variety of these sessions. And any useful information that comes out of those is disseminated, enabling us to support academic colleagues across the university. They also offer networking events, and they send out regular news updates and bulletins with useful information. Vitae. Vitae is a diverse range of support for our sector. researchers and research managers, and is home to the CEDARS survey used to evaluate research health at universities and the HR Excellence in Research Award. It is also home to the Research Development Framework used to support research training in 4 areas of key activity. These are knowledge and intellectual abilities, which is the knowledge, intellectual abilities and techniques to do the research. Number 2, personal effectiveness, the personal qualities and approaches to be an effective researcher. C, research governance and organisation, knowledge of the professional standards and requirements to do the research. And D, engagement, influence and impact, which is the knowledge and skills to work with others to ensure that the wider impact of research. I will now hand you back to Stuart to tell you about responsible research here at the university.
Thanks, Kelly. So as Kelly said, now we've learned quite a bit about responsible research. How is this framed in relation to Leeds Beckett University? The diagram on this page is something the RIG teams put together to try and illustrate an example of a tool that could be used by researchers to determine what they might consider when thinking about responsible research. Because everything we've heard so far doesn't apply to every type of research or every bit we've looked at. It's in some ways a bit of a pick and choose. What we're trying to do here is provide a holistic capture of all the elements you might need and that we've covered so far in the presentation, and to try and consider these when designing and carrying out your research, although this isn't an exhaustive list either. What we've put together here is divided into 4 segments, which describe 4 stages of preparing, doing, involving and reviewing, which, as you move out of the circle, provide prompts for the various things you might consider whilst carrying out your research. As I said, it's not an exhaustive list, and it's not intended that you have to consider every aspect when you're designing your research. But what it'll do, it'll prompt you. And if we develop this further, what we'll have is little descriptions for each of these areas. So you hover over it and it'll tell you what things you might want to think about when designing your research in a responsible manner. So really, it's a bit of a toolkit. There's quite a few of these about, and this is just something we've come up with as a team. In terms of a formal position of the university, this slide provides a draft of what a responsible research statement might look like for our university. I just hasten to add, this isn't approved yet, but this is something we've drawn up as a draft, and it'll probably be considered over the next few months. It sets out how our university aligns with the principles of responsible research, of creating value for society in an ethical and responsible way, and reminding us of the collective responsibility of funders, researchers, stakeholders, and the public. I think that's one of the important points. It's a collective responsibility to research responsibly. One key aspect of the proposed statement is that researching responsibly isn't just about adhering to rules and regulations, and that researchers also need to consider the impact of their research and whether it makes a positive difference to people, organisations and communities. And you may ask, what's the purpose of this? The purpose of having such a statement is to outline our university's commitment to research and responsibility, and to show how it fits in with our university's own values and strategic aims, which I've set out on this slide. So this slide shows our university's strategic aims, and when drafting the proposed responsible research statement, it was clear there was a significant overlap between some of the principles of responsible research that we talked about earlier in this presentation and our university's strategic aims. I'll now hand you back to Tina for some final thoughts.
Thank you, Stuart. As a final thought, we live in an age where the human race has a collective responsibility to right our wrongs and at the very least do our best not to add to them. Responsible research provides a managed process for ensuring that we take a holistic view to our research practice, management and governance, ensuring that the legacy of our research is positively embedded into society. Finally, I'm handing you over to Lisa, who will share some further reading with you and close our presentation.
Thank you, Tina. The further reading list includes guidance and tools that you may find useful. That now concludes our presentation. The team would like to invite you to ask any questions you may have. If we're unable to answer a question now, we will get back to you. If you prefer, you can email any questions you have to the RIG team. Our email address is at the bottom of the slide. I shall now open the floor for your questions. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Rig. Does anyone have any questions? We have a, oh, no, sorry, that's not a question. Shanta?
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think a couple of you just made some comments around sort of where we're up to on our journey. Would you say that we are where we need to be? We are ahead of where we should be? Just thinking about constantly changing landscape, policy changes, looking at what other universities are doing. Have you got any sort of feedback on that? Thanks.
Would you
Want to
like me
take that?
to answer that question, or Stuart, who would you like to answer that question? Who's it aimed at? I'm happy to answer
Anybody? Yeah, thanks, Tina.
Shall we do a tag team, Stuart?
Yeah.
I think it's important to address this point. So in terms of the university's good practice around research, it has always followed the policies and procedures that are set out for the sector. But I think it would be fair to say, in terms of taking an active role in research information governance, that the university had recognised its importance and to that effect put this team in place in March of 2021. So we're a relatively new team, but there's a recognition that the prioritization and the importance of good governance is the way forward in terms of ensuring that we have rigor in our research, that we are able to prove to sponsors, funders alike, that we have appropriate methods in place to manage our research in an appropriate way, and to ensure that we work effectively and with integrity. Stuart, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it's also important to say that we did the benchmarking against the assessing how we were up to against Concordat support research integrity, and we came up with a relatively clean bill of health. But I think, as I mentioned in the slides, we don't have that kind of overarching policy, and I think that's come about really because our research has developed quite hugely over the last few years, and we're now at the point where actually we need to adjust our systems, processes, procedures to catch up with where we are in terms of where we're at as a university in terms of our research. And that's something you're always doing as a university. You're always kind of sometimes playing catch up with your systems behind the scenes. But yeah, I think one of the big things we noticed was that I wouldn't say we're behind the sector. We've got everything in place in terms of policy, procedure, guidelines, and we now have a much clearer position following the formation of our team where we are in terms of refreshing and renewing those. But I think having this overarching statement, either a responsible research statement or a research integrity policy that ties it all together, is really helpful. But it also helps people who want to try and engage with that within the university or outside the university to see what our kind of position is and how we do things. And then the next steps following this, once we have all this in place, is to provide kind of tools and guidance. I mean, we've showed some examples of toolkits you can use to engage with this, but we'd like to supply more than just a big list of policies and procedures, and enhance the training and guidance we've got around integrity, to try and build that further in. So it makes life easier for researchers within our university and the partners we work with. Is that helpful, Shanta?
Thank you.
And just some final words, just really to say it's a journey. So we're always on that road, and we're always going to be doing more rather than less.
Got a question from Sheila?
Sheila? Yep.
Hello, thank you so much. That was really helpful. I just had a question. I was looking back at that lovely diagram, that wheel of responsible research at Leeds Beckett University, and I was just looking carefully at it, and I see that there's a a section that's missing. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the deep purple one in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth concentric circle. Perhaps it's in the middle. It's after the yellow and the pink one, and maybe there's nothing to put in there, or maybe it's work in progress. And I just wondered whether that was deliberate or whether it's work in progress. I don't know if you can see what I mean.
Yeah, I can explain that. So this is a draft
Thank you.
diagram, but however, also it's not required that every segment's filled. I suppose I think maybe that's a design thing, really. So within that review section, there is less. So I think if you look at the first purple kind of, it almost goes all the way around. What it's trying to demonstrate, and without all the kind of text to go with it, this doesn't hugely mean a lot. That the things like challenge and benefit and inclusion cover, review, involve, and the do sections. So the gap bit really is that there's nothing else in there at present. I mean, it doesn't mean we wouldn't add to it, but this is a bit of a draft thing, really, just to illustrate the kind of tools that we might use. So this isn't a ready prepared tool that's available now, but this is just trying to show, if you're a researcher coming in and going, right, what am I supposed to do in responsible research? There's a million things I have to think about. This is a bit overwhelming. Well, actually, you can just kind of hover over the various areas about. So if you're preparing your research, what things do you need to think about? And some of it might not be relevant at all to the research you're doing. Some of it might be absolutely entirely relevant. And it's just to really, this is really a tool to use to prompt for thinking about what you might need to consider under responsible research. So as I say, it's not the finished article yet, and we may end up not using this, but it's something we thought of, a way of trying to get people to do it all in one place.
No, thanks very much. And I think it's really useful to have something that's visual like that as
Yeah.
I'm doing my doctoral studies, and just to look at that and think, oh yeah, okay. And it's just a way of checking, is a way to help me review what I've been doing, or to reflect on what I've done and see where, so I've yeah. And how will we know whether it is going to be when it is finished, or whether there's a new draft?
We'll have it up on the web pages, and we'll probably send out something in the research newsletters and that these tools are available. So we're hoping to put a number of things. So we'll have maybe design our own tools, but also provide links to the ones that are already established and out there, because there's quite a lot around the science side on responsible research and innovation, and some of this is based on that. We've expanded it a bit wider. So, but yeah, we'll let everyone know when these things come online and on the website. As I say, when I was talking about this, we'd like to have a lot more on our web pages that provide the guidance and help for people. So we'll signpost that when it's up and ready.
Thanks so much.
Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining the session. It is the final day of the festival, and we do have a number of sessions in the TKE today. I have added a link to the afternoon sessions at 1 and 2 p.m, which you can join online, or you're welcome to come down to the TKE and join us from 12 for lunch and then on to the sessions this afternoon. So thank you everyone again for attending this morning's sessions, and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.